to Secret Weapons, and today we're taking a look at the Benson Germanium Preamp pedal. I'm really excited to talk about the specifics of this new device, but before we get there, I want to go on a little bit of a walk with you. Feel free to skip ahead if you don't care about everything we're about to say, but I do think it's pretty pertinent for the discussion at hand. And what I want to say is this: I don't think that this is an upgrade or a version 2 or a better version of the original preamp pedal from Benson. I think it is a modification on a circuit that will really satisfy a lot of users, but also maybe not be right for others. So this is not advocacy for chasing the newest and nicest. This is an opportunity to kind of showcase the two different flavors of the preamp pedal, with an emphasis obviously on the newer one because that's the purpose of this video. But I'm here to basically explain where they depart and where they are similar and how you might go about choosing which one is best for your rig. So a little bit of history first. This is the Benson Preamp pedal, the flagship initial pedal offering from Benson amplifiers. This is the Chimera preamp circuit shrunken down and with vacuum tubes replaced with FET transistors. This is, in my personal opinion, one of the best analog preamp pedals anyone has made. I've used this as the kind of like amp section of direct rigs for years. I have used it as an overdrive for years. One of the highest value use cases that I pulled out of this for years was I used to play live with a really small Supro combo amp that had fine enough clean tone but lacked a little bit of character, and this was always on just as an amp fixer for that particular amplifier, and all other boosts, compressors, and overdrives stacked ahead of this as the kind of like core amp sound in an otherwise very flat amp environment. The Benson Preamp has been a sound that I have loved for years. And then Benson did something really interesting. They released the Germanium Boost. This is a really high headroom, flat response, beautifully colored servo biased Germanium Boost pedal that is just one of my favorite pedals ever made. It's probably top 3, a desert island piece of gear that sounds good on every instrument I have ever put through it. And I'm not being hyperbolic there. I'm gonna put a link in the description down below to a video I did last week on this channel where we pushed drum buses, synth bass, guitar, and bass through this pedal, and all of it sounds excellent. And the reason it's so good is that high headroom servo bias Germanium has this really interesting softness to it. It's got this like punch and saturation that the Germanium offers. It's something in between, like almost like tape saturation and compression that just feels really wonderful. And those things counterbalance really well with the snappiness and the muscularity of the original FET-driven preamp pedal. And a lot of other people must have felt this way too, because apparently Benson got a lot of messages about the kind of like use case of the Germanium Boost right ahead of the preamp pedal, and that is what resulted in what we are talking about today. The Benson Germanium Preamp is a really interesting counterbalance to the original preamp circuit. It's still that Chimera topology, and it still has some of the FETs from the original design, but the first stage FET got replaced with that servo biased Germanium from the Boost pedal. And it results in a couple of things. One thing worth noting right up front is this is a slightly lower gain, but also reasonably quieter version of the circuit. I find that volume never really drops below about 2:30, 3 o'clock on this. Otherwise, I risk an overall loss of volume for my entire rig, at least slightly. The original pedal is going to be louder, a little bit more gain, and a lot snappier in that respect. This one is going to be pillowier, it's going to be saggier, and a lot more of a kind of like gentle, laid back version of color and overdrive. That's not to say that it does not get angry. You heard on that intro track, that whole track was the Germanium Preamp and the Germanium Boost kind of paired and unpaired throughout, but all of our gain came from volume and drive in this pedal. And I mean, you heard it, it still gets big and angry or touch responsive and beautiful, but in either case, it doesn't feel overly in your face. And if that's something that you like about the original pedal, that is a great use case, but this gives that tonality and that color, but recontextualized for a slightly softer version of drive. Your treble and your bass controls are going to operate exactly the same as the original one, offering high and low pass to kind of like fine tune how much brightness you let through into your amplifier and how much low end you want to cut out to kind of tighten things up. The drive circuit goes from just pure color and character all the way up through overdrive and some pretty convincing fuzz sounds, much like the original. There's some great medium to high gain sounds in this pedal. And also, I really like this color. I think the mint is very nice. It's not relevant to the pedal necessarily, but it is cool looking. The beauty of a pedal like this is it's been around for a while in a different format, so talking about it too much at length feels wasteful. So I'm gonna kind of let you know what we're going to do to approach the rest of this video, and then we're gonna get into it, and you can use the kind of chapter markers down below to find the kind of relevant information for this pedal for your use cases. We're gonna start out by listening to it all on its own into an amplifier, kind of the main use case that most people would hear it in. We're just gonna turn knobs and kind of explore it as a drive pedal ahead of an amplifier. Then we are going to do some comparative work between it and the original preamp pedal so that you can hear where those gain and volume and snappiness differences kind of like allow the two to be their own pedals relative to each other. And then we will finish things up by plugging it into the UA Ox Stomp pedal and use it as basically its own preamp circuit for a kind of all on the pedal board direct rig. So let's get into it. As always, before we get into our sound samples, let's talk through our signal chain and the context we are working in. I am playing my Fender 52 reissue Telecaster into the 29 Pedals EUNA, the Benson Germanium Boost, Germanium Preamp, regular preamp, and delay. From there we go to the Chase Bliss MOOD, the Universal Audio Golden Reverberator, and then out to our amplifier, which is the Morgan PR12. We are recording in Universal Audio's Luna DAW, and we are mastering with an SSL bus compressor. Here's our dry tone. EQ at noon, volume boosted to meet unity, and gain set to be basically clean. This is the Germanium Preamp. You can hear right off the bat that kind of softness and pillowy like responsiveness, that little bit of sponginess that the Germanium offers up. Just like a quick A-B. Let's go ahead and start dialing up that gain range. We'll max out the volume and minimize the gain, and then start working our way up through. And for context on that kind of loss of volume that we talked about with this version of the drive, here is the comparative clean tone. That's nice. It cleans up really well with volume. Okay, with this super maxed out thing, let's start playing with that EQ a little bit, because as you can hear, that's pretty like woofy with everything at noon EQ wise. Let's bring up a little bit more treble and really kind of add clarity more specifically by carving out some of that low end. So let's give this kind of like semi-crackly edge of breakup thing. A listen with some ambience. Let's pull in our Benson Delay and our Golden Reverberator. Conversely, and conversely, let's go ahead and darken up that tone a little bit more, roll that treble off. Rolling off both can actually create some really beautiful warm tones. Let's see if I can do this upside down. Slip mode, full octave, full speed. Let's see if all this is all correct. So for this part of the video, let's go ahead and kind of match the Germanium preamp to the original preamp to kind of hear where things differ in terms of like point-to-point settings and how to kind of like approximate the settings on here over here to hear how the kind of like dynamics change up. So this is basically what I would use if I was setting up the preamp as a slight clean boost, but mainly for like clarity and tone shaping. So here's our dry tone again. So you can hear about unity volume with the settings that where we have them right now, and a little bit of a low cut and a little bit of sparkle and kind of like slap. As you can hear, not only is it a softer sound in terms of dynamics, but it's also quieter. So let's go ahead and bring up the volume to match. Like I said, it's a lot less snappy. It's a lot less kind of angular and attacky as in the way that the kind of like all FET version of the preamp can be. But that has its benefits. In the same sound, let's now A/B those with that ambient tone that we had built earlier. So that ambient clip, you can hear that you get a very different timbre of responsiveness in that ambient section. Something a lot warmer, something a lot softer around the edges, a more almost woody sound, if that word means something to you in this context. We've now set up a slightly higher gain setting in the preamp, something that I would use for kind of like more of like a rhythm guitar, something I would double track 2 takes and hard pan with the original preamp. And then if we go 1-to-1 across the 2 of these, you will notice a lot less volume, like we said, which results in a lot less gain as well. But by simply bringing up the volume on the Germanium to match, you get a really vastly different sound between the two, but something with a totally different flavor that's quite nice. Yeah, it's pretty great. It's a very different type of the same circuit, which is really unique as far as like variations on the same circuit that I've seen before. And of course, as promised, we are going to take a look at the Germanium Preamp as the kind of preamp section of an all-on pedal board amp rig. So we have the universal Ox Stomp in the back here at end of chain, and it is, I've got my phone here with all the settings so I don't forget, running the 1x12 Blue Jay cabinet with a 57 and a dynamic 421 on it. Before engaging the preamp, this is what it sounds like. And just for fun, let's go ahead and pan our microphones hard right and hard left. Make sure that they are even on volume. So now we have our 57 hard left and our 421 hard right. And let's bring in some really big reverb from our Bliss MOOD and maybe catch some loops just so you can hear kind of what a spongier sounding solid state preamp can sound like in like an all pedal board ambient context.